Jonah Gadjovich has earned an extension from the Panthers, and the special teams has been thriving through the early part of the year.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome into this Monday, October 13th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I am Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers. And as we stand here on this Monday, the Panthers are 3-0-0 to start the season, a sweep of the homestand after defeating the Ottawa Senators by a final score of 6-2 on Saturday. They begin their 5-game road trip tonight in Philadelphia, which we will discuss more about in segment number 3. Today, we are going to discuss Jonah Gadjovich's extension with the Florida Panthers. And segment number 2, we will discuss how the Panthers special teams has been thriving throughout the year. But it's not the be-all, end-all on why the Panthers have been so successful. So stay tuned for that part of the show. So the Florida Panthers announced on Sunday during their off day and their travel day to Philadelphia, and on the birthday of Jonah Gadjovich, that he and the Florida Panthers have agreed to a 2-year extension worth $905K for the next 2 years after this year. And Jonah Gadjovich, this is an early extension for the Panthers in the season. We saw this with Nico Mikkola even before the season started. So the Panthers once again locking up their guys and guys who have helped them get to their second straight Stanley Cup, and guys who have been part of the mix for now the last few years. Jonah Gadjovich as the enforcer type of forward and a type of guy who will stand up for a teammate and get to the dirty areas, be part of that checking line for the Florida Panthers. And to think that Jonah Gadjovich, being a second-round pick from the Vancouver Canucks in 2017, had a great junior career with the Owen Sound Attack, won an international junior championship with Canada, although that team has had a lot of controversy over the last few years of the 2018 squad. But Jonah Gadjovich has been part, as far as his NHL career, has developed quite well with the Florida Panthers. We talk about how important it has been for the Panthers to develop guys in the roles of right now what's going on in the farm of Jack Devine, Hunter St. Martin, and Grayson Sachin. But one of the underrated stories was, once again, another guy in Jonah Gadjovich who was in another place right before coming to the Panthers, although not a high profile type of guy that the Panthers brought in. It's not to the levels of Sam Bennett winning a Conn Smythe, Brandon Montour being a power play quarterback for the Panthers, and even a guy who scored 20 goals in Sam Reinhart from the Buffalo Sabres, but then not thriving in another place. And Jonah Gadjovich playing only one game with the Vancouver Canucks, and that's it for the team that originally drafted him. Had some time with the San Jose Sharks for a few years, two to be exact. Only played a total, right? I'm seeing this right here in front of me. Only a total of 78 games for the San Jose Sharks in the 2 seasons prior to that. The Sharks were going into a transition from an older veteran roster that had been competing for Stanley Cups and going into a rebuild. So it's time for the front office for the San Jose Sharks to turn the page on that. And Jack Gadjovich, 27 years old now, getting this deal for the Panthers. We know at this point who he is as a hockey player, which he's not gonna get the double digit goals. But he's gonna be part of the rolling of the 4 lines to get the top unit and also give them a lot of time, and especially if they give themselves a lot of time in the ozone with Paul Maurice's intense forechecking system. And the belief for Jonah Gadjovich goes even further than just this extension, that he signed with the Panthers. I mean, let's not forget that his first training camp with the Cats, he was injured all of it, like in 2023 going into 2024, and roster cuts were happening. Jonah Gadjovich was still making those round of cuts, even though he had never stepped on the ice for the Panthers just yet. And there was just once again the front office evaluating and their scouting department checking in on the players and seeing if this is a fit for the Panthers. And this is once again a lot of credit to the people below Bill Zito who take their time to watch the tape and see, okay, this is the style of play that we want to be, the type that is bruising to the opposition, give them zero time and space, especially when it comes to the opposition breaking out of their own end. The bottom two lines for the Panthers really need to fit that. Although the third line really, at least throughout their most recent Stanley Cup playoff run, is a very high upside scoring line for the Panthers. So, and the fact that you had that third line there and also a fourth line that had not given up a single 5-on-5 goal against until the Stanley Cup final, that you're giving yourself an opportunity to win and sometimes win big and put games away early. And that's truly another reward for Gadjovich there. And he was also under the radar on his first extension with the Panthers, which it was near the 2024 trade deadline where Bill Zito announced he didn't let this leak to the media, but he announced it himself when it came to the extension of Gustav Forsling. But in that same breath, he said that Jonah Gadjovich also earned himself an extension as well with the Panthers. That was also a 2-year deal, which right now Gadjovich is on the last year of it. So this year and then 2 more seasons for Jonah Gadjovich in with the Florida Panthers. It's another one-way contract that you have on your books that when Bill Zito goes back to his board and looking at options, whether it is free agency or wanting to make trades in order to either add to the roster or the necessity possibly to clear cap coming into 2026, 27, you know what you got, because right now it's 16 one-way contracts for the Panthers with 7 roster spots to fill, and your big free agents going into next year is Mackie Samoskevich, who's still going to be an RFA. He's still a few years away from UFA status, which will be 2029, and Sergei Bobrovsky. So uh, the fact that you got all of these done, the cap going up, which is now a projected 107 million according to Elliot Friedman. So this gives the Panthers $20 million in 20.22, excuse me, $1 million in total cap space if it is in fact a 107 million of the total cap, and the Panthers are going to spend up to it. They've shown over the years that they are going to. Uh, when you see these long-term extensions, even for their core guys, the 1 million base salaries, he's willing to put the money right in front, right there. A lot of money is coming out of his accounts on July 1st, especially, but he wants to win. He's shown that over and over again. And even though this is not a lot of money for what the Panthers spend on Jonah Gadjovich, this is going to be catching up to the what 1 million minimum that even guys out of their ELCs are going to get, because as the cap goes up significantly, the minimum is also going to. So eventually the minimum is going to get to 1 million for even players coming out of their entry level deals or veterans. So the fact that they got the next 2 years with Jonah Gadjovich, even under that, and the fact of the cap hit is the price doesn't go down, that this is another valuable piece that you can plug and play on the fourth line in the case of whether the Panthers need to have speed on their fourth line or just need a bruiser. Jonah Gadjovich can be reinserted in and out. But I mean, when you see what he's done, I mean, he's gonna be a guy that you probably pencil into the lineup most nights. You look at it as possibly more than 70, especially if he's healthy. And one of the many contracts that, once again, it's not just the ones that are late round draft picks. It's one of these. Jonah Gadjovich is another one of a Dmitry Kulikov at 1.15, which we'll get to Kulikov a little later. But he's not caring about. He's caring about being with his friends more than he is about the bank account, and that's also another thing about the hockey culture of winning a championship. You want to stick around with guys who have helped you on and off the ice, and that's the example of Jonah Gadjovich and his success with the Florida Panthers. He's a mainstay, at least for a short while, 2 years after this one, which he will be a unrestricted free agent in the 2028 offseason. It doesn't necessarily fit. It doesn't necessarily have the same exact timeline as the other 11 players signed at least until 2030, but this is a player who it fits right once again into the Panthers system. And when you step on the ice and you have a situation where you need minutes on in your own offensive end with a checking line, Jonah Gadjovich is one of those guys who definitely bring that. Even though he's not the strongest of skaters as far as speed, the big body and the ability to close gaps, especially, is very helpful for this Florida Panthers team. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we are going to discuss the Panthers special teams on how it's made a big difference in the early parts of the season. We're going to discuss all that and more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. And most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have a full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together, all in one easy, clean, easy to use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. So if you've been putting off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorization on your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. And it's helped me with certain subscriptions that I didn't realize I was still paying, and Monarch Money pointed it out, and I was able to cancel some of the subscriptions in order to put more money in my pocket. It's an app that is helping you work smarter, not harder, when it comes to my wallet. But don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off of your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Segment number 2 here on this Monday, October 13th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And I hope that everybody is having a great holiday weekend, whether you are here in the United States or you are north of the border in Canada. So most people are off on this day, and we have some matinee games today. Matinee on a Monday. So great to see that there's a lot of options, including some Florida Panthers hockey tonight at 7 p.m. in Philadelphia. You got, like I mentioned, matinee hockey. You got postseason baseball, 2 Monday night football games. It's a very busy time as we are once again in the sports equinox here, as the best sports month of the year. But the Panthers special teams is dominant throughout the first 3 games of the season. 5-0 for the Florida Panthers, 5 of 12 on the power play and 7 of 7 on the penalty kill. And the thing is, the Panthers in different situations this year have been able to shut things down, especially late in games, whenever especially in the first 2, where they get a goal, whether it was midway in game 1 or the first 2 minutes of the third period in game 2, shut it down. And the fact that they got a power play goal in order to either take the lead or extend it. In the case of Thursday's game, it was to extend a lead, and then in the game against the Ottawa Senators, a 6-2 final, that was one to break it open, being their first 2 goals on the night for the Panthers, being even strength, which the Panthers +1 right now at even strength. But you look at the possession metrics for the Panthers and getting their opportunities on how they tilt the ice in their direction. But it also comes down to PIM percentage taken for the Panthers, which right now they are at the 3rd best PIM percentage taken, which that percentage is penalties taken for to penalties taken against, and their 3rd best right now through 3 games in the NHL. And these can be skewed in the first part of the year as things usually balance out throughout. But so far, so good for the Panthers. They are third best. And right now, the opposition that they face tonight in the Philadelphia Flyers, they're worst in the NHL at 69% for penalties taken. So it's double the amount that the Panthers have, and the Flyers have only played 2 games to the Panthers 3. So that again, that might not be tell the whole story, but it's a good thing to look for in the first few weeks of the season. So far so good for for the Panthers, but it's also about timing of when the Panthers have drawn penalties. The first 2 games against Chicago and Philadelphia, those were mostly in the first half of the game, while the Panthers continued to press it on. And looking at the game on Saturday, which was on paper, it looked like it was the most difficult matchup of the 3, and especially with what Ottawa had coming back against Tampa, Panthers being shorthanded with injuries once again without Dmitry Kulikov on Saturday, which after the injury, which Paul Maurice said that he they'll determine options after the next few days. He's behind in South Florida while the team is on the road, so they don't know whether he's going to have surgery just yet, but he is on injured reserve. He'll be miss at least a week, and the Panthers are still finding ways to win. And the game on Saturday, which you don't expect a blowout, it's the one that has been the most convincing. And even when you're putting a little bit of pressure on, and they're not committing, the opposition is not committing penalties in the case of the Senators early, you're still getting behind, pucks trickling up, chipping it up the walls, and then still you start with speed 10 15 feet away from them, and then you're still beating them to the puck while the defenseman at the blue line is turning around, and they don't have the same start that the Panthers are getting from a speed perspective, and allowing them to get north south, which is a great way of the Panthers drawing penalties, excuse me, and still getting their chances in the offensive zone. And I mean, it's also predictable of where, at least for power play 1, of where they're always going to take the draw, because Sam Bennett doesn't have the best faceoff numbers. Usually on the power play, the Panthers are going to be starting off on the right hand side, and for power play 1, you see a combination of a 1-2-1-1-2, which you'll see Aaron Ekblad at times go into the middle to try to get something off a rebound. So sometimes he looks a little bit stuck there, and you're not using him the best to his strengths. But at the same time, you're seeing the Brad Marchands and Sam Reinharts of the world going to battle behind the boards, and still keeping those pucks in when they're using that 2-1-1-2, and then switching it up to the 1-3-1, where you'll see Aaron Ekblad on the flank, Sam Bennett as well, and then Brad Marchand parked in front. So that's also extreme for the Panthers, how they're putting that unit together. But power play 2, 4 out of the 5 goals for this team. And I mean, Anton Lundell parked up front. Jeff Petrie, we spoke about the puck moving for him, and how he's able to just get through pucks through traffic and opening up lanes. Aaron Ekblad on power play 1, easily being able to open up that lane, allows the screen to get in front, and still, even though the goaltender is able to see a little bit, because Linus Ullmark wasn't fully screened, it's still making them doubt things a little bit, and also beating them high, which the Panthers were able to do so many times throughout Saturday's game against Ottawa. And also what they're doing with their PK units, because you're seeing Cunnin with Eetu Luostarinen. So when Eetu Luostarinen and Cunnin are on and have that diamond formation in their PK, it'll be Luke Cunnin on top and Aaron Ekblad towards the walls. So especially with the Panthers, if they go on the PK in the first and third period, they could chip it up near the bench, and it's also easier for the Panthers to get the changes necessary to get fresh bodies on the ice. So it's 2 guys on as right-handed shots for the first defense and forward units, and then you'll bring in Seth Jones as far as the second D for the Panthers, and also 2 right-handed shots together with Evan Rodriguez and Sam Reinhart. So Evan Rodriguez taking a bigger role for the Panthers. Also, hey, he also scored a goal in on Saturday's game, although maybe a little lucky with Linus Allmark not gloving it properly. It's just like a wide receiver in football coming down and then the ball coming out and it's an incomplete pass, but Linus Allmark didn't get a whistle. That was at even strike, but we're talking special teams here. But Evan Rodriguez still playing a big role as far as the reach for of even at his size, the reach that he has. And one thing I noticed with Luke Cunnin when he's on the PK for the Panthers is when he is up near the blue line battling with the opposition's power play quarterback, you see him provide the hip check, and also if his partner in the case of Etu Lustorainen is already starting to go north up the middle, you have an opportunity when you're providing that hip check to backhand something out of the end. So you go right in and towards the races, or at least give yourself an opportunity to kill time, shoot in once you gain the red line and get the proper personnel needed for your group. But also, what's been impressive for the Panthers is catching the opposition on changes, which with the Panthers and their aggressiveness and their protections and pinches, which you recognize that when there's a flip, you see their own blue line, they are zipping it and going for that stretch pass right away, just so that they could get an easier lane. And that's also allows for some overthinking, and also if someone's on the flank while someone's cutting into the middle, that provided that opportunity for Mackie Samuskevich to get the puck on his forehand and then able to get that puck into a better lane than what they have when cycling it and rimming it around like they have. So the Panthers speed game has been also a very important part to getting this 5-0 differential in special teams. So that group has been cooking power play too, and happened in the Stanley Cup final, even this past year. Uh, I mean, they started off with a bang, even in the first round. Nate Schmidt was especially that dog for the Panthers last year, and it's continuing on this season for the Panthers. And gotta give a lot of credit to the group. Jamie Compon on the power play, Sylvain Lefebvre, which defenseman, if you want to thrive in Florida, which Jeff Petrie is looking to once again thrive and win a Stanley Cup. He's has nothing more to accomplish in his career. Working with Sylvain Lefebvre and that Panthers decor has definitely been a help so far, as with his experience and 2,000 games between him and Kulikov, even when healthy. He is it's definitely something that I've been quite impressed with his ability to protect him as well, and not allow Sergei Bobrovsky to give up quality chances. Most of the goals, I mean, one of them being on Saturday, miscommunication between him. But when the opposition's on the cycle, block shots, ability to see pucks, and just glove it down and get a whistle to get your guys necessary, because you've had the last change in these last 3 games. Panthers match up, and they know what they want whenever it comes to these matchups. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where the Panthers will begin a 5-game road trip tonight in Philadelphia. What changes will they be seeing from the opposition, and what storylines will we see possibly coming on this first major road trip of the year? We'll discuss all that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And the NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And I love FanDuel because it makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action, whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats. FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Once again, download the FanDuel app today to get started. Segment number 3 here on this Monday, October 13th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Monday. So, first major road trip for the Panthers this season. And once again, Dmitry Kulikov is on injured reserve for the Panthers, and they have recalled Tobias Bjornfoot to be part of the team, recalling him from the Charlotte Checkers. And also, congrats to Jack Devine, a Panthers prospect, on getting his first goal with the Charlotte Checkers over the weekend. So starting off on the road for their first 2 games over in Springfield and Providence. So as far as the Panthers and their lineup as what is expected to look today, no changes for the Panthers. Uvis Balinskis is still going to be in, which I was really impressed from him from what he showed on Saturday. There was one play that they had a replay on where everyone is down towards the far side corner, and then the puck goes loose and it rims around, and Uvis goes all the way from the blue line, and it is right there to keep it. And the Panthers still got themselves on the cycle for at least a good extra 30 seconds for him. Only played 20 seconds on the penalty kill, so you won't be seeing him and Petrie too much on that side of the ice. Both guys known as puck moving defensemen, not stay at home guys. So you know who's going to be that unit for the Panthers when they do go on the kill, unless it's one of the top 4 D that do. But some changes for the Philadelphia Flyers is that their first round draft pick from last year, Jet Lachenko, is expected to be in. He did not play in the first matchup between the two teams. He did make his debut when the Flyers did visit the Carolina Hurricanes on Saturday. So this is their home opener for the Flyers. Lachenko played on the 4th line against the Hurricanes. They ended up losing in overtime. So the Panthers this week, they're going to be on the road for 2 home openers tonight against the Flyers, and then on Thursday against the New Jersey Devils, which the New Jersey Devils did beat Tampa Bay Lightning in their first road trip of the season. The Tampa Bay Lightning both dropping to Ottawa and New Jersey. So New Jersey will be home, and the Panthers play a nationally televised game on Wednesday. So a lot of spotlight for the Panthers. 2 home openers and a nationally televised game, which Detroit has been up and down to start the year. But also the Philadelphia Flyers, they'll be on the ice. They'll have a number 1 in the trapezoid to honor Bernie Parent, as one of their goalies who unfortunately died in the offseason, a legendary goaltender for Philadelphia. So that is one thing you'll see on the ice there, which is a nice little touch. So no changes for the Panthers, 1 change for the Philadelphia Flyers. But also on this trip, you'll see the Panthers be play in a matinee game in Buffalo, which Death, Taxes, and the Florida Panthers playing matinee in Western New York. Feels like that we always see at least both of their games against Buffalo be one of those weekend matinee matchups, which can be tough to predict for the Panthers. And the thing is that we'll see their first back-to-back of the year, so we're going to see Daniil Tarasov start in one of these games. Do they start against a Detroit Red Wings team who's hoping to break their playoff drought, or an up and coming Devils team? Actually, more than up and coming. They're expected to be back in the playoff race after missing it last year, where well, actually no, they lost in 5 against Carolina, but really they made the playoffs and nobody gave them a chance with the whole bunch of injuries that they had. So do we see Daniil Tarasov make his first start with the Panthers there? So that's another storyline for this. And also, to wrap it up on Tuesday, the return of Brad Marchand to Boston, and that's also going to be a nationally televised game. So the Panthers are spotlighted in this first 5-game road trip. It's also an opportunity for the poker games to resume for this Panthers team, as they're going to be spending a lot of time in the air in opposing cities and hotel rooms, and another opportunity for team bonding, which AJ Greer on What Chaos spoke about how relaxed the team was, even going down to 1-1 after the second game in Edmonton and Brad Marchand scoring the overtime winner there, which Brad Marchand had a goal on Saturday similar to what that was in Edmonton for game 2. But that's also that opportunity for more of that team bonding and more of those poker games on the plane, which this is once again going to be a relaxed group, and they've earned all their wins. You can't say that there has been a single game this season for the Panthers that they haven't earned. Uh, and this is the thing: all 3 of them are regulation wins, which is going to help with tiebreakers. You create an early cushion, and I'm not going to be talking about separation between them and the first wild card this early in the season. Let things play out at least for the first month and see where things are. Which right now, the Panthers are banking the points and also uh, give themselves an opportunity to at least not have to outright win if the opportunity if need be for when they get to the end of the season. So this is a great start, and the road trip for the Panthers. You look at them; it's all of them are very winnable, and the Panthers with their 5-on-5 play and still keeping the puck in the offensive end, and their special teams from the unit that you would consider not the better unit on paper, they're coming up big. So it'll be a little bit of a confidence boost for that first unit, and also give them a little bit of breathing room, like we mentioned earlier. So uh, gotta be pleased for the start, and just once again that this team is just as focused as can be, whether it's game 1, game 82, game 1 of the playoffs. You see a focused bunch definitely here in South Florida. But that's going to do it for today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Coming up on Tuesday's edition of the show, we are going to recap the Panthers and the Flyers game as they will take on Philadelphia once again in their home opener on Monday night from the Xfinity Center. So thank you guys, as always, for listening. And in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.